The Houston Rockets, they finished with the fourth seed. They finished 44-28. They lost to the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals.
This is going to be a long
4-1.
Well, so.
And my main storyline, I have two for them as well. One of them is, will Harden stay? That's really the one I have. Will Harden stay? And the other storyline I have for them is, even without Harden, still competitive. Even if Harden leaves, especially if they get a Ben Simmons back in the package, they'll still be a viable team in the West. They'll still have a shot at making the playoffs. You have that team right now. They added John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, Christian Wood, who I think is going to be a star. And everybody in the Houston Rockets organization believes the same thing. They lost Russell Westbrook, Covington, Austin Rivers, Jeff Green. So they lost some of their key guys from last year. I loved Covington, and I loved Uncle Jeff, who's on the Nets now. And Austin Rivers is on my New York Knicks, so I love him as well. But look, their head coach, Steven Silas, he's coming in from that Dallas Mavericks team that had the best offensive rating in NBA history, so he's probably going to take some of his concepts and take it into Houston. And right now, let's say they do have James Harden. I mean, John Wall, James Harden, Eric Gordon, PJ Tucker, Christian Wood. Off the bench, you have DeMarcus Cousins, Macklemore, Daniel House, Gerald Green, Sterling Brown. The only problem with them is that they don't have a backup point guard. They have Jerian Grant on the roster. Chris Clemens just tore his Achilles. So they don't have a true backup point guard, which I think is going to hurt them. But, I mean, this lineup, if everything goes well, which is a big if, and if Harden stays, I think can be one of those teams that goes to the Western Conference Finals.
Yeah, I agree with you. On paper, like, there is no question this is one of the most talented teams in the league. I have them, like, in a similar position as the Clippers. Basketball-wise, they're great. But I do not envy Steven Silas coming into this position because, like the Clippers, there are so many outside forces outside of those four lines of the court that are going to impact this team this year. And you saw Harden showed up, but he said he's still not committed to Houston. He doesn't want to be there. So what's going to happen with that situation? I agree that even if they lose him, they could still be a competitive team depending on the package. But it also takes a lot to bring in, say, 2 or 3 new pieces in the middle of the season, lose your best player, and retool and figure that out. If they had gotten a deal done for Harden earlier, I would be more confident saying that, but it's going to be a lot of moving pieces and a lot of figuring out. And the problem is, even if you keep Harden, with that Tim McMahon piece that came out, all the problems that come along with, the culture that they've developed there, there's just a lot of question marks that need to be answered, and it starts with what happens with James Harden. I know they want to hold on to him and get the perfect value out of him, but you're never going to get the perfect value out of him because you won't get the perfect value out of any superstar. Even Anthony Davis last year when he got traded, I felt like that payback wasn't necessarily enough for a guy of his stature. So, like, when you're trading a superstar, you're going to have to sell below value, and I think that if Ben Simmons is on the table, any deal with him, you have to take that. You're apparently getting some nice offers from Miami, a nice offer from Brooklyn. So there's opportunities to get rid of him. And I think the sooner they do that, the better, because like you said, they could still be a playoff team without James Harden. And I want to see the pieces that they can bring in and reset that future that they gave up getting Russell Westbrook and messing up the cap and the picks. But I like the moves they made this offseason. Basketball wise, they're a top 3 seed in the West, no question, but they got to figure things out off the court before I feel confident talking about them on the court.
Yeah, that's true. Before you go, Riv, just sit up more and angle your iPad differently because you're going to get cut off.
What you mean by angle it differently?
Like, so your head is more towards the top. Yeah, like that. Yeah, a little bit more. No, like, push it down.
That was even worse.
No, like push it up.
No, the other way.
Yeah, like the other way, bro. All right, you're good.
We good?
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, you made me lose my train of thought. This James Harden situation is pretty hilarious to me. I don't know what this guy wants to do here. I don't know his mindset. I don't know if he wants to play or not. I feel like it's disrespectful to your teammates to not want to play and be out there with them, riding with your guys, regardless of the situation. I feel like you can request a trade, but still ride out for your dogs on that court and play hard and be a competitor, be a player. In the same sense, I think Philly has the best deal. I think you're getting a generation of talent in Ben Simmons. I think out of Miami, Brooklyn, Ben Simmons is the best guy you're getting. He's just made the All-NBA team and the All-Defensive team last year. He's one of the best defenders in the league. He can guard 1 through 5 easily. So I think you get a guy who you can play at any spot in Houston, and I know they have John Wall, but I think you can play Ben at the 5. You can play Ben at the 4. He's positionless. So I think that would be the best thing. I think they're getting Matisse Thybulle in the process too. That's a young guy who's pretty good. He can shoot 3 kind of, and he can play great defense. So you're still going to be competitive. Plus, you have a young guy you can build on, So I think if you're going to pull the trigger now. Now, speaking from this team right now, this team is still good. This team, Christian Woods was good. DeMarcus Cousins, if he's looking all right, I'm not a guy who blows up preseason, but he looks all right. He looks healthy. John Wall looks all right. He looks healthy. You still got Eric Gordon out there. I know Eric Gordon sometimes takes really dumb shots, but he can still be that guy off the bench. Daniel House is still a good guy. Then you got PJ Tucker, who's still going to bring that toughness and that energy. This team can easily be a top 5, top 6 team in the West, and I think they're fully equipped to play teams like the Lakers, Denver, with these new big men. And I'm not saying they're going to go out and lock Anthony Davis up or lock the Joker up, but they're going to be better equipped now than when they had a 6'5" center and a 6'7" power forward. Now you got actual bigs who also can step out and hit the 3 ball, who can step out and hit the mid-range shot, in Christian Wood and DeMarcus Cousins. And their bench, it looks a little suspect. They still have Gerald Green and Ben McLemore, who are 40% three-point shooters, so that's good. That's good for anything. When you get shooters around James Harden and John Wall, that's going to be good. And you get a guy in John Wall who is not better than Westbrook, but he offer up things that Westbrook just wasn't doing. Defensively, I think John Wall is better. As a playmaker, I think John Wall is better. So you get a guy who's smart enough to know shots he can't hit, he's not going to take. So you get a guy like that who's going to come in. He's also going to be that offense initiator, that guy who's going to get open looks, who's going to create for others. And that's going to be good for James Harden in the process too, because the last time we've seen James Harden with a point guard like that and Chris Paul, they went far. Not saying it's the same thing or they're going to go as far, but you've seen what happens when he plays with a playmaker first. So I like Houston's team right now. I think this team right now is still equipped to be a competitive team in the West.
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, I think you're pretty right on point with a lot of those things. Also, they have another bench player, Bruno Caballero, who looks like he's coming into his own as well. He's looked pretty good in the preseason, and he's a big. But, I mean, the thing is, they're better equipped to guard centers, and they can still put P.J. Tucker on one if they want to as well. Like last year was P.J. Tucker had to be on them because they had no other choice. This year they have a choice. He can be on them as well if they're getting tired and they need somebody more physical and like a pest like P.J. Tucker is. He just gets up in you because he's so darn tough, tough as nails.
Oh my goodness.
P.J. Tucker's one of the toughest guys in the NFL, man. He's a true warrior. He's a true soldier, a warrior,
we get it, bro.
a lieutenant, a sergeant. He's a captain. He's a commander. But P.J. Tucker is awesome, and I really like this team. What it comes down to for Houston is, do you want to trade for Ben Simmons and pair him with John Wall? Because I think that doesn't make much sense, right? It doesn't make much sense. So if they trade for Ben Simmons, it's mostly because we want to ship off John Wall sooner than later. So we're going to count on Ben Simmons. Or do you want to trade with Miami and get Tyler Hero and say, well, we want a guy that's going to fit with John Wall as well? Because we think John Wall's a long-term option, so we'd rather want Hero. So it really just depends. Do you project Hero can be better than Simmons? I mean, Simmons, of course, offers that defensive ability, but Hero looks like he's on a different planet offensively. He's really good offensively. And I think if you get Tyler Hero in Houston, I mean, a trade package would probably be, for me, Kendrick Nunn, Tyler Hero, and some picks. Kendrick Nunn instantly is that backup point guard that they need.
Where's the cap? You got to fill up the cap.
Oh, I mean, you could add in Kelly Olynyk in the deal or something like that. You could add in one of those and some picks, but I mean, now you have Tyler Hero starting at the 2, Kendrick Nunn coming off the bench for John Wall. He can also be a future option at the point guard position once John Wall goes. And then you have Picks and Kelly Olynyk, who's a big man. He plays physical. He can step out at the 3. You can either get him or Myers Leonard. So there are options. In my opinion, I think I have 2 scenarios for the Rockets and where they're going to finish. Without James Harden, I think they'll get the 10th seed because the West is just so damn loaded. That's really all it is. I can see them finishing as high as 8 without Harden and as low as 12 or 13. If James Harden stays, because of the turmoil and the drama around the team, I see them finishing as a 6th seed, but I can see them finishing as high as 3. If James Harden buys in, they can be a top 3 team in the West, and I see them finishing as low as 6 or 7 if James Harden stays.
Yeah, there is no more volatile team in basketball in the sense that, like you mentioned, there's so many different ways this season can go, and it's going to happen at some point. There's no way that this season runs its course and James Harden is still there and everything is peachy. It's just not going to happen with the comments that he's made. But in a perfect universe where James Harden stays, is happy, and they play their best basketball, this could be a 1 seed, in my opinion. I love the product that they're putting on the court, speaking strictly basketball. But being realistic, I have them at 5, and that's assuming Harden is there for a good chunk of the season, at least up to the deadline. But I could also see them, like you said, finishing somewhere around like 10, 11, 12 range, depending on the package they get back. So there's no other team that I have such a wide range for, but there's also no other team that has so many question marks and different outcomes that they could see throughout the year.
Well, I actually threw a little trade package of myself for Miami. I had Tyler Hero, Kendrick Nunn, Andre Iguodala, and Kelly Olynyk to fill out the cap because James Harden, he's being granted $44 million. So I had those 4 and 2 picks shipped out for James Harden and PJ Tucker. I feel like they're gonna ask for something else in the process. And 4-1, the season started, so it's like you need somebody else in there to fill out the roster. So that would be my trade scenario. I think Tyler Hero would be best if they do feel like John Wall's the long-term answer, but if they want Ben Simmons, then I guess the objective is John Wall's out of there either by the deadline or at the end of the season. He won't be there long-term. I have them highest, if James Harden is here, he's buying in. I have him as high as 3. They can get to the 3 seed, I believe. Lowest 6, just because the West is so stacked, it's so loaded. I don't even think a 6 seed is bad in the West. I don't even think an 8th seed is bad. That's how good the West is right now. Without James Harden, I have him as a 10, 11th seed, playing, maybe sneaking into the play-in. If not, I feel like they'll be just a couple games out of it. Nothing too crazy. They'll be fighting for it to the end. So that would be my take. I just feel like because the West is so stacked, you can pick any team to make the playoffs, that it's not even a bad thing to miss the playoffs this year in the West because it's so good.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I love the trade package. I think any team that is trying to trade for James Harden, whether it be Philly, Miami, Nets, you have to ask for PJ Tucker in return. PJ Tucker and James Harden are best friends. PJ Tucker brings in that physical toughness to any team that he goes to. Mark Jackson famously said in the playoff game,
he loves this quote.
He said, if you don't love PJ Tucker's game, you don't love basketball. Everything that PJ Tucker does spells win. And you can ask any Houston Rockets fan, PJ Tucker is the glue to that team. He brings that toughness. He's one of the toughest guys. He's tough as nails. He has a great personality. He's super strong for 6'5". He's like 240 pounds. He's like a Chuck Hayes who can shoot corner threes. PJ Tucker is one of the most awesome players in the NBA. And I think because his stats aren't glamorous, people tend to overlook him. But in fact, he's one of the most valuable players in the NBA. He's the perfect glue guy, and he can fit on any team. Whether if he goes to Miami or Philly, you got to get him in a James Harden trade package because he's good. He's what's going to make that team successful. He's the missing piece to teams that want to get over the hump.
Man, if PJ Tucker ever sees this channel, he might ask for a restraining order.
I think he'll ask me to be. He'll fly me out, man, so I could catch a game. That's what I think.
Now that is an interesting trade package, Riv. The only thing I would say is I would ask for at least like 3 picks and maybe some pick swaps. Like that's the biggest thing for me. If I'm the Rockets in this deal, I'm looking for draft capital. As much as I'm looking for good players to add right now, I'm looking for that draft capital to rebuild what the Rockets have lost in past deals. So I would be interested to see what they get back from any deal, but I don't see any team having such a crazy course of the season as that.
Yeah, like just to finish the segment off, while I do love the idea of Ben Simmons, I think the player that he is now is the one who he's going to be. He's not going to turn into that superstar top 10 player. He is what you're getting. You know, if I'm Houston, I'd rather trade with Miami and get Tyler Hero and Kendrick Nunn because I think Tyler Hero can become a star. I think he could become a top 5 shooting guard in the NBA. He shoots already 40% from the 3, so he's giving you something that Ben Simmons doesn't offer. In an NBA that is all about shooting pretty much, you need a guy like that. And if you can get Kendrick Nunn in return with some picks, that's the perfect deal, and I'd pull the trigger on it.
Yeah, and I think that deal would be better. 1, getting more picks. I think you would get in a deal like that. And 2, I think it would make more sense for the direction you want to go in because Ben Simmons would make more sense if you wanted to compete right now because he's a better player right now. But I feel like if the Rockets are giving up on James Harden and moving on from him, they kind of need to hit at least a mini reset button and move things around. And Harrell fits that timeline more than Ben Simmons does.
Yeah.
I think you guys, I agree with you to some extent. I still think I would ride with the Ben Simmons wave just because of the simple fact that, yeah, Terrell. I said Terrell. Wow. Yeah, Harrell showed us a lot in the playoffs, and he showed us what he can be with that shooting ability. But Ben Simmons, I feel like just defensively and as a playmaker, he's so above and beyond Tyler Harrell, and he's one of the top 5 defenders in the league, top 10, top 15 playmakers. And I think that's a place Tyler Harrell will never be in those categories. But I do think Ben Simmons can become a 20 to 22 point scorer. And if he gets to that, I feel like he will be just as dangerous. But, you know, I feel like you couldn't go wrong with either trade package. You're getting a potential superstar in Tyler Harrell. You're getting a potential superstar in Ben Simmons. I feel like you can't really go wrong in that aspect. Both guys are really young. So I just want them to pull the trigger because James Harden, it's clear he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't want to play for that organization anymore. So I feel like they should pull if they want to pull the trigger and be competitive, they should do it sooner rather than later, not wait on these long trades and make teams pull out on trade deals.
Tyler Hero in one playoff series, in one playoff appearance, Tyler Hero has played better than Ben Simmons in all of his playoff appearances, and he as a rookie.